Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Beth Hassett Sabbath Fellowship. Our building is locked. It's been nearly 3 years like this. We're virtual. You could reach us at the phone number listed right there. We do the philosophy of eschatology, what you need to know, your reality, our existence. We try not to be disparate. We're Beth Hassett Sabbath Fellowship. Thank you for joining us. Last week we talked about the Temple Mount and about Israel and about all the signs that were observable there. This week we're going to talk about observable signs in your weather and weather patterns and other signs that you should be aware of. So let's get together, and one of the notes will be from east to west. I want you to note that, and when we come to that, that's a Bible verse, and we'll discuss it. So the next thing is that we've got storms happening that are just bizarre. Now, we've had snow in Buffalo before. They get a lot of snow, lake effect, we'll call it. And I'm in Minnesota. I understand snow too. But this was weird. This was snowstorms and waterspouts in November. And so they've received 77 inches in Orchard Park. Horrible. 65 inches in Ethel Springs. And so there's the stadium. There's Buffalo Bills Stadium there. Wow. Historic snowstorm slams western New York after a record 6+ feet of snow dumped in Buffalo metro area. So amazing, that lake effect. But then you have to be aware that it was water spouts forming. So basically, that's like a tornado forming off a snowstorm. So it's kind of electrical, and there are other things going on. And then you can see the homes there too. Just horrible situations. But we've had snow before. So is this a sign of the end times? Huge lightning storm in Australia. Now, this might be more because we're going to be able to prove that this is an effect of our electromagnetosphere thinning. But the main thing is 4.2 million lightning strikes during wild weekend storms in Australia. Very interesting. I'm putting a check mark by this because this is actually a sign of the end times. Lightning is listed in the Bible a few times. And so 4,213,700 lightning strikes over Australia in recent November here. So very interesting, and that will connect up. So we should get a check mark by the time you see the list, and that'll come up in a few slides. Okay, this is interesting too. This is as of when I'm recording right now, which is November 19th and 20th. I'm actually on the 20th. And so there's a geomagnetic storm that occurred, but it wasn't much of a storm, people. I mean, it was a little baby storm, a little burp off the sun, and we might see pink aurora. Now, normally we'll see green. You'll see that on the left-hand side. Green is standard. Green is, I'll show you the slide in a second, what it's hitting to cause that color. But the main thing is pink is rare, and very rare off a minor CME type of a blast. So just be aware of that. The forecast is 70% chance for C flares coming up. Those are the lighter ones. 15% for M flares and 1% chance of X flares. Well, off a C flare, we're going to get pink. Come on, that's a little bit different. That is a sign, and also I live in Minnesota, so I might see it. Okay, the other thing is weather is intensifying in the Arctic, and it's nasty stuff. They're getting cyclones up there. So that's the current climate. They're expecting future climate to be much worse with storms all over the place, patterns up there, and this is up in the Arctic. So the electricity, the CME, the things like that are coming in through the Arctic Circle and the Antarctic Circle, and so it's coming through the poles, and then it comes back out again in other areas. So these cyclones will be much stronger in terms of pressure, wind speeds, and precipitation. We're going to talk about all of those things today. And intensive storms will be a hazard to shipping activities, oil and gas drilling, things like that, and could be the end. By the end of the century, rather, the cyclone wind speeds could increase up to 38 miles per hour. Now, I'm positive that's going to occur. That the winds are going to be much worse, and it's biblical. So I'll prove that to you. Peak intensity of these storms could be up to 30% longer. Precipitation will likely increase. So what are we doing here today? We're trying to give you the Bible. We're giving you prophecy, and it's biblical prophecy today. We won't really do a lot of modern prophecy. And then the fake news, well, this is real news. Whether you believe in global warming or not, it seems to be cosmic. It seems to be galactic, that it's not warming, but it's changing, okay? And it's volatile. So just get ready for it. You're going to see your typical green aurora, but you're also going to see some pink if you're up north like I am. Although I'll show you a slide where you can see that the auroras came way further south into like the Bahamas and things like that. So these things happen. Okay, so these are the things that we're going to check off today for strange sounds, and that's the article that I'm citing here. And strange activities coming up. Extreme weather signs are becoming stranger, and they will become stranger. So increasing solar winds and activity, CMEs, okay, so coronal mass ejections, okay, that should check off by the time we're done. Increasing ozone thinning in holes, I think you'll check it off. Increasing wind speeds, and then at an odd period of time, you're going to have a half an hour of no wind. Okay, increasing lightning storms, increasing aurora borealis, first green, then pink, at lower altitudes, or latitudes rather, okay, increasing earthquakes, increasing polar wobble and pole shift, it's biblical too, and increasing meteorite size and occurrences. We'll check them all off. We'll see if you agree with me. Now, where I think this all started, and Ben Davidson has been pointing this out for a while, is the Carrington event of 1859. So everything's moving along, and Israel is still dusty and dirty and no rain and things like that. And then suddenly, by about 1867, they mark the end of the dry phase, and then around 1900, Israel starts to get rains again. And during this time frame, just before that, where the world starts to change, and I think God is causing the world, our Earth, to change to bring in the Messianic time frame. And so this CME, this geomagnetic storm, occurred in 1859, and it was horrific. Okay, now keep in mind, according to this article on the right-hand side, in 2025 there's a 2 to 3% chance of a Carrington event. It'll be in that solar cycle, and that is actually possible. It would destroy everything in sight if it occurred. Okay, that's electrical, because this event is so bad. And so they saw aurora borealis in Australia's, as far as Queensland, which is amazing. And then they saw it in the South Caribbean and the Hawaii. Okay, the northern U.S. could read the newspaper at night from the aurora's light, and telegraph systems went haywire. Yep, that's true. Very interesting. So there are these eruptions that come from the sun. They're flares. They can be holes too, and they send wind towards us at different speeds. Kind of like Ben Davidson says, it's like a shovel building up the snow on the shovel, and then kind of bunching it and then kind of thrusting it at you. So the Carrington event was September 1st of 1859. Giant solar storm hit Earth, disrupting all electronics, telegraph at that point in time, and it lit up the sky. If it happened today, the Earth would be thrown into chaos without technology. So that solar cycle number 10 occurred in 1855. It was about average in strength. And so keep that in mind, not a strong cycle or anything like that, as measured in sunspot numbers. And we've been measuring for many, many years now. Of the cycles that have happened since, 7 were weaker than cycle 10, and 7 were stronger. So just note that. The 7 thing is kind of interesting for Revelation. There's a lot of 7s in Revelation. So this storm was really bad. And then moving forward, and all of my sources here are from the volcanocafe.org. So during August of 1859, a huge sunspot came into view on the sun. It was at mid-northern latitudes on the sun and dominated the solar disk. There was a smaller spot on the southern solar hemisphere, but otherwise the surface had been clear. The new spot spread out over a sixth of the width of the sun, and the start of September, it erupted right away on September 1st. So once again, you've got the solar wind, you've got the charged protons and electrons are emitted from the sun. These particles follow the Earth's magnetic field. They enter in through the poles, and then that's where it's weakest. And then there's the magnetic field that kind of protects it. But the problem is our magnetic field has been weakening. Now, the ESA in Europe and our NASA talked about it and published things about it, then they stopped. And the reason why they stopped was it's getting worse. And you can say that this is man-made, but it's not. And so you have to be aware that this is going to get worse. So once again, red auroras are above 200 km, oxygen molecules. Blue auroras, nitrogen molecules. Green auroras, oxygen molecules. But then the pink, nitrogen. So it's very interesting when you start to see the pink, because that's actually really serious stuff, and it's way down lower too. So I mean, in terms of latitudes, it's going to move down. So the electrons collide with various molecules in the atmosphere. Yep. The resulting excitation of these collisions causes varying colors, and based on the height and types of molecules hit. So very interesting. So this is what happened in 1859. And then so they saw this down in Havana. They saw red and blue waves down there, the auroras down in Havana. Think about how south that is, okay? And then so from 1784 to 1859, aurora had been seen from Havana a total of 6 times. 2 of these were a double storm then of 1859. So most of it came from the Carrington event. Even Kingston, Jamaica saw this. They saw it looked like a colossal fire on Earth, okay? And it reflected its flames on the heavens. The whole island was illuminated. Okay, just amazing stories. So streamers with the electric magnetic field, the current followed these field lines. The lines dipped down towards the poles. It clearly came from space. Now, there are people that will post things on this video claiming, oh, it can't come from space. It has to be man-made. Well, it came from space. And nowadays, we would call it space weather. The problem is nobody wants to admit that anymore, that things come from outside of our Earth, that the sun drives our heat and our energy and our UV and things like that. But then there are other factors that come from the cosmos. So keep that in mind. That's what I wanted you to be aware of. That we would just call it space weather, but there are other people that want to call it global warming and want to go that direction. Now we're going to head into the verses. So we want to read. This is very interesting, and I wanted to pull it out in the Orthodox Jewish Bible, and I'll try to translate the sections that are more confusing. But this is Isaiah 24. This is the mini apocalypse that the Jews would read. And so, pachad, fear, that's more like an accounting fear, like you would count up to that fear point, okay, of the pakat, the pit, and of the pak, the pitfall, the snare. So basically, fear and the pit and the snare are upon the, inhabitants of the earth. And it shall come to pass when he who flees from the noise of the pakad, that accounting, shall fall into the pakat, which is the pit, and he that cometh out of the midst of the pakat, the pit, shall be caught in the pak, the snare. Okay, and the aurora, the windows, the ozone layer, okay, that area of the magnetosphere above our heads, from on high are open. They are opening, people. They have been thinning since 1880, since just after the Carrington event. And most of the Eretz, so the foundations of the earth, these things that drive the earthquakes do shake. Okay, the Haaretz, the earth is violently broken down. That's what's going to start to happen more. The Haaretz is completely split open. That's the earth, split open. The earth is shaken exceedingly. Haaretz shall stagger to and fro like a drunkard. That's pole shift. And it shall shake like a meluna, the watchman's hut of the Pesha. So Pesha is a willful transgression. That is something where you're doing something against God, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall and not rise again. So there are intentional and unintentional sins. This is an intentional sin, and that's why it's heavy upon the earth, and it shall fall and not rise again. And it shall come to pass on Yom Hahu, that day, that's the day of Yeshua, when he returns, that Hashem shall visit in punishment the Zavahamarom, that's the beings, the pagan deities, he calls them, that are the warriors on this mid-level area, kind of just below the ozone layer. And the Melachim, the kings of the earth that live on the earth, upon the earth, they will be punished too. So he's going to punish all of them. And a very interesting passage. And so I want you to be aware of what's going on, that these types of things, we just clicked off, that the ozone layer is opening up. We clicked off, or thinning. And I'll show you both in slides coming up. And that there will be more earthquakes. And there will be a pole shift, like the earth will be a drunkard. Those things are cited there. And also, there's a couple of other verses that I want you to see. There's a time, now, what I want you to imagine is that there's this time when the winds don't blow in Revelation 7, 1 through 4. But if you would notice that, that means the winds are blowing very strongly for you to say, no winds. Like a few days ago, we had a day where there was just no wind. Well, that's been rare lately. The main thing is, I would notice that because I take walks all the time, and I notice the wind coming off the lake. So and I live in Minnesota, you know that. So the main thing is, For us to notice a half an hour without wind or a time frame without wind, that would mean that the winds would have to be stronger at some point in time. So that means the winds must increase enormously for us to notice this no winds time frame of a half an hour. I don't know the timing of it, but I'm saying, so I'll just quote Revelation to you. After this, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth. I'm not a flat earther. It's just the way it's stated. And there seems to be 4 corners anyway, holding back the 4 winds of the earth so that no wind would blow on the land or the sea or any tree. I saw another angel coming up from the east with the seal of the living God, and he shouted to the 4 angels who had been given the power not to harm, power to harm the land and the sea. Do not harm the land or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the servants of God on their foreheads. I heard how many were sealed, 144,000 from every tribe of the people of Israel. Okay, very interesting. So just one more time, just file it away in your mind, because we're not really checking anything off yet, but for us to know, well, we're kind of checking off the 4 winds and holding it back. But the main thing is, I can't check off that the winds will be horrific just before this, but I think that's what's occurring. Okay, that's my premise. Okay, now we're going to get to the interesting verse, which is Matthew 24, where Yeshua literally is contradicting science and whatever you observe every day of the week. So he says lightning from the west to the east, right? No, from the east to the west. So let's show it to you. First of all, on the left-hand side, these are the polar jet streams. The jet streams always go west to east. So any storm that you've ever seen in your life has come from the west to the east. That's where the tornadoes come from. That's where the storms come from, west to east. Whether it starts a little bit to the north and then goes, southeast or anything like that, it always starts from westerly and then goes east. But Yeshua in Matthew 24, which is the Olivet Discourse, the most critical section of the Bible for an eschatologist, he says, so if people say to you, listen, he's out in the desert, don't go. Or look, he's hidden away in a secret room, don't believe it. For when the Son of Man does come, it will be like lightning that flashes out of the west. No, he said the east. He said east first. What? And fills the sky to the western horizon. Well, he's backwards. That's scientifically impossible unless we have a pole shift or something horrific that would flip everything around, and then suddenly it would be coming from the east to the west. Oh my goodness, that would be bad. So then the next phrase is weird. Wherever there's a dead body, that's where you'll find the vultures. And most people would die from something like this. With the winds changing like that, that's probably close to the Armageddon time frame, we'll call it, which would be Gog Magog fighting in Israel. So I'm assuming right after that, the vultures are going to all gather and eat the dead bodies. So let's check this out again. So our jet stream, as I mentioned, it's going to be from west to east always, and everything kind of happens in the normal way. You've got things, electricity coming in from the poles. You've got the winds coming out basically from the equator and kick off these trade winds that always move west, always, always, always. And so I'm saying there's a timing issue of the increasing winds and thunderstorms. I'm saying gradually through the 7 seals, then no winds through Revelation 7, 1 through 4, which we read. And so that would be just setting into the trumpets just beforehand. And then pole shift must be very late. I'm saying if we're going to go into a pole shift, something like that, then it would have to be late in the process because no flesh would really survive that long of a time. So I'm saying literally it's like flipping the earth over. Or the poles over, which would cause the wind to go the other direction from the east to the west. That's what I'm surmising from those verses. And nobody else really talks about it, but it's anti-scientific. So that means Yeshua would have to change the laws of physics, which is not a happy thing. Okay, why would Yeshua contradict the standard weather that we all observe, the jet streams and things like that? Because this is probably a pole shift. That's what I'm surmising. For when the Son of Man does come, it will be like lightning that flashes out of the east and fills the sky to the western horizon. That's backwards. That means pole shift, I think. Our normal jet streams are from west to east. If you have a pole shift, the winds might go from the east to west, but only if the vultures were surviving. They would be the only ones. So I think it would be late in the 7 years. Okay, so other points that you need to be aware of is that the magnetic field is mysteriously weakening, causing satellites and spacecraft to malfunction. This is 2020. We know this. It's interesting they're willing to publish this. And so magnetic polar shift, why it might spell disaster. When the last shift occurred, it happens. Okay, it'll happen again, and what it'll affect. So that means, as a result of that, the magnetosphere is thinning. You'll see more lightning and more auroras, and they'll be different colored, pinks. Okay, NASA observes the slowly splitting South Atlantic anomaly, a dent from Earth's magnetic field, and so they're willing to admit it. Okay, there's an anomaly, and there's a split down there, and there's that hole. There's the South Atlantic anomaly in terms of at that particular moment where it happens to be. But the magnetic field is weakening, and this is basically a comment from NASA that the North Pole anomaly. Why is Earth's magnetic field shifting? Where's the magnetic? Will the magnetic poles flip? Yes, they will at some point in time. And so you'll see more plasma penetrations as the magnetosphere thins. And so there'll be more storms, there'll be more wind, there'll be more just lightning, there'll be more bad weather. Okay, so just keep it in mind. So then moving forward, I've kind of described this already, but basically the solar wind comes in, hits, and then you'll have the discharge. And so basically, I'm saying all of this could take years or months to go from normal to abnormal, which will be horrific. Thinning in holes, and it'll just increase over time. Okay, now let's get back to the article, and I'm citing Ben Davidson from Suspicious Observers. So this is the 4.2 million lightning strikes. So Ben's comment on this particular situation is one thing we have been talking about is increased lightning and what kind of storms are going to hit. More storms, obviously. Seen more and more of this type of severe outbreak. That's what he expects to see over time. So we can check that off. And then on the other hand, the pink auroras have I have seen 10 years of aurora guiding, 10,000 tours, whatever else. So this particular person, Marcus, is talking about it. But Ben is saying down below, expected to continue ahead due to the increased atmospheric electricity and particle bombardment as Earth's magnetic field continues to weaken. So you'll see more pink. You'll see a lot more green, but even more pink as we move forward. And you can check off that box that you're going to see. That's a sign of how close you're getting to the apocalypse. Okay, once again, from green to pink, northern lights turn pink thanks to a crack. No, thinning. Well, there are cracks and thinning, so I'll add them both together in magnetic field. No doubt about it. And that's November 15th of 2022. So they're citing this. And then on the right-hand side, we've got a couple of things going on. I want to read that as much as possible, but it's kind of blocked by my timer. So Earth's magnetic field remains unsettled in the aftermath of only a G1 magnetic storm on November 3rd, but we're seeing pink aurora, which is a bad sign. Then an explosion of pink auroras. If you see a lot of auroras, I've been guiding aurora tours. Here it is, tours full time for the past decade, heading into 1,000 hours. Marcus says, and I thought I had seen it all, but now he's seen so much more pink. So that's the article that I wanted to cite. Marcus is saying, I've seen this for years. 10,000 tours, or 1,000 tours rather, but 10,000 hours of being out there and observing, and now he's seen some weird things. And that's the thinning magnetosphere, sorry. And then the other article down below it is NASA is funding a rocket mission. Okay, they want to figure out what's going on with the electric circuit that's powering the northern lights, because the lights are changing. And Marcus from Norway is saying they're changing. He's noticing it. So once again, green means standard, pink means this is getting worse, and the weaker magnetic field is letting in more of those sort of solar particles in deeper and deeper and deeper, and you're going to notice it, pink. Okay, so one more comment on this. Pink auroras are a sign of nitrogen. Most auroras are green, the color of oxygen atoms being struck by energetic particles. So this is from Space Weather saying that's standard fare, okay? But now we're seeing the energetic particles descending lower. So Ben Davidson says during normal magnetosphere times, green auroras are common, pink auroras are rare. When the magnetosphere thins, pink auroras are more common. Our most recent geomagnetic storm was weak comparatively, but it caused pink auroras. That's a bad sign for our magnetosphere thinning. So, lightning fatalities, it's going to get worse, and you'll notice more of them. Notice more of them down in Texas, Louisiana, Florida, places like that, Georgia, Alabama, Arizona too. Interesting. Not many in California, not many storms there. What you will notice is the polar shift is destroying the ozone layer. You'll notice more magnetic weakening, ionospheric disruption, extreme weather. You'll notice volcanic surges at some point in time. Oceans will shut down, and more storms like the one in Buffalo. Check it off. Okay. Does the galactic sheet bring larger dust? So basically what Ben is proposing is there's a galactic sheet that's kind of spinning around. So the Earth is spinning, and our cosmos is spinning in terms of our solar system, okay? But then there's something else spinning and colliding into us, and it's starting to hit our outer planets first. So now I want you to look at it this way, that there's more dust, which is going to be fig-like and then get larger over time. So if you read Revelation 6:12 through 15, and then all of 8, you'll notice a pattern of meteorites growing from figs to larger rocks to mountain-sized rocks. If the galactic sheet is bringing dust, so to speak, will the dust size increase over time? Absolutely. Check it off. You're going to notice that occurring too, and that's observable. More asteroids during the end times soon? Yes, you'll notice more. So this is an article from 2022 from March 8th. An asteroid impact could wipe out a city, but NASA has plans to prevent a catastrophe. Not really, no. They think they do, but they don't have a plan yet. NASA warns asteroid could strike Earth in 2023 at 61,000 mph. Impact could create crater nearly 1,000 meters wide. It's possible. Just be aware that as we head into next spring, every 5.9 months we experience increased solar activity. Increased solar activity weakens our electromagnetosphere, our protection. The asteroid events should coincide. So this next asteroid event should coincide with that 5.9 month increase when our shields would be weaker. In 2005 asteroid's earliest possible impact could be on March 11th of 2023. Just interesting. I don't know if it's going to hit or not. It doesn't really matter because we have lots of other things to observe. And we have these things coming through. We have these comets, and we have asteroids and meteorites coming through all the time. People call them sky dragons, flaming swords. The Word of God is described as a sword too. So keep that in mind. It's interesting, the green color. So this is a meteor off Brantford, Ontario, Canada, which is very close to Buffalo, and it looks like a green sword, which is what the color would be of the sword in Revelation 6:8, the fourth horseman. I've always wondered, so when you see that particular shot on the lower right-hand side, and you look at the sword above it and then the meteorite above that, it has a sword effect. It just kind of does. So just note it, be aware of it. This is what's going to be more common as we move forward. I think you can check it off. And then severe winds during the end times. And it's kind of soon. Is it getting windier out there? I believe it is. And I've talked to pilots, and pilots say, yes, it's getting windier. Now, wind damage, this is in Canada. So they're saying that in Canada, they've noticed more damage over the last 10, 15 years. There's been about a 15% increase in the incidence of windy days. And this is in 8 stations across Canada. So basically, the number of days with strong winds is increasing. And you can see 2021, many more days of windy days, which is bad for farming because it blows your topsoil off. But it's also bad for us just to survive. So the windier days are getting worse. Wild wind, the overlooked wild card in climate change. Historically, the state's largest, so this is Maine. In Maine, our wind is our nemesis. The preceding 9 years, the global average wind speed increased 6% from 7.0 to 7.4. So I'm saying ask the pilots, and they'll tell you it's breezier, windier. It's dangerous. You can check that off. It's going to get windier. And that's sometimes plasma penetrations coming from the sun. They're just getting through the thinner ozone layer. Okay, more climate change equals more lightning. Once again, plasma penetrations causes more wind, causes more lightning, more storms, things like that. So you're just going to see it. Science Daily agrees with us on this from November 11th. Climate change strikes. Lightning patterns change with global warming. Yes. Explainer, the increasing lightning strikes, deaths, and role of climate change. You can check it off. So in the little box on the right-hand side here, meanwhile, some regions have also witnessed a rise in the frequency of lightning strikes. Punjab, for instance, witnessed a whopping 331% increase in lightning strikes. Wow, and that's 2021. Okay, so it's all over the world. Europe is noticing more lightning strikes. 2022 broke all June since 1989 when record keeping began. So in France, it's worse. Everywhere, it's increased lightning strikes. And it also increases the temperatures. Lightning is hot. Lightning is hotter than the surface of the sun and can reach temperatures around 50,000 degrees. So keep in mind, lightning is going to increase the temperature too. So it's a sign again of plasma penetrations. More freakish weather due in coming years. Yes, the cosmic winds are going to cause more earthly winds. And so you can kind of see the diagram. The world is getting windier. And that might be good for wind farms, but the problem is if the wind is too fast, it destroys the wind farms, the mechanisms. Terrifying videos. Island tsunami as dam spills and floods hundreds of homes and businesses in Australia. Wow. So you're going to see more wacky weather. Just get used to it. Check it off. Water wars. Several major rivers experiencing drought at the same time. I wonder what could be causing this. I don't know. But it is odd right now. You're going to notice those things too. So let's check it off again. Increasing solar winds and activity, CMEs. Yeah, you'll see more of that. You're seeing the evidence. The ozone is thinning and there are holes. Yes, you saw that there's the southern Atlantic anomaly, and it's getting worse. And there's a thinning in general. Increased wind speeds, and then that weird time of a half an hour of no wind. Go figure. But that means you will notice the increased wind speeds, and you'll notice when there's no wind for a half an hour. Increasing lightning storms. Yeah, you've seen that. Increasing aurora borealis, that's shifting from green to pink. Yep. Increasing earthquakes. Increasing polar wobble and pole shift, and it's biblical too. Increasing meteorites and occurrences. So it's all biblical, and it's rather interesting. And once again, I'm showing you that sword aspect of this, that you will see that green sword playing out over the end times as we head into the fourth seal. So one more set of verses from Luke 21. For these things must happen first, but the end will not follow immediately. Then he told them, people will fight against each other. Nations will fight each other. There will be great earthquakes. There will be epidemics and famines in various places. And there will be fearful sights. Phobatra. Interesting word for that. Phobia. Great signs. Semyon. Yeah. From heaven. Okay. That's what I've given you in this video. There will appear signs. Semyon again. In the sun, moon, and stars. I've kind of stated that. And the earth, nations, the goyim, will be in anxiety, aporia, which is kind of close to phobia, and bewilderment at the sound and surge of the sea, as people faint with fear. That's phobu, which is phobia, basically, again, at the prospect of what is overtaking the world, for the powers in heaven will be shaken. That's the third time it's stated in just a few verses of Luke 21. And you will see then the Son of Man coming on a cloud with tremendous power and glory. So these things are starting to happen. Where are we right now? We're in the birth pangs. We're probably entering the fourth seal. It seems like we're getting close. We're definitely in the third seal with food prices. Then the tribulation hits, then great tribulation. Those are 3.5 years each. And we are experiencing end times extreme weather. That's what's happening. Now, we need to work on our white garments. We need to stay clean. And that means you can't show up to a wedding naked, and you can't show up with dirty garments. You'll be thrown out. You need clean garments, which means repentance. Faith and repentance. So get ready for your wedding. Thank you very much for your time. Be blessed. Thank you for all your time.